Hi, I'm Tim Farrell. Welcome back to the Texas State Florists Association On-Demand Learning. I've been exploring the elements and principles of floral design with you, and this is part 7 in our series of 15. Today, we're going to talk about the element of size and how we can understand that and use that best in our floral designs. I know in the series so far, I really enjoyed being with you and talking about the elements and principles of floral design, because I think that any of us as floral designers, the more we think about it, the more it comes to the front of our consciousness and just makes us better designers. So sit back, let's get started talking about size in floral design. And again, we have the best text on the market as far as floral design. The AIFD Guide to Floral Design. This is produced by the American Institute of Floral Designers. And it really is a wonderful publication for use in studying for any kind of accreditation. I know that the Texas State Florists Association offers a PCF program, and that's to get your professional certified florist designation. You could also use this same textbook for other certifications like your AIFD or your CFD from the American Institute of Floral Designers. It is really a wealthful of information in one volume. You can read it over and over again to learn about the elements and principles of design, floral traditions, floral terminology, and floral technique. So take a look at this next slide, and if you don't have a copy, get one from Texas State Florists Association with the information listed below. So what is size as an element of design for us in floral design? Size is the physical dimensions of line, form, and or space, which are 3 of the elements we've talked about already in this series. If you're just joining us now, you might want to go back and review those other ones, because understanding line, form, and space in design will really help you to understand the element of size as we proceed. So when we talk about these things, we can't talk about the element of size without actually referring to the principles that go along with that. And the principles we're going to carry out in maybe lessons, I think 12 and 13 in the series, but they'll be later in the series. But the 2 principles that refer to the element of size are scale and proportion. Let's just quickly define those 2 so we know what they are. Proportion is specifically the relationship of the things in the design to each other. Is there a relationship in size between the size of the container and the size of the flowers? Or maybe one size of one flower to the next size of the next flower to the size of the largest flower in that design. And knowing those things is how we talk about and understand proportion. The second principle that refers to the element of size is scale. And many times designers confuse those 2 principles and don't know quite how to define them. But if you think of it this way, scale is the relationship in size of the floral arrangement to the environment that it's going into. Then you'll understand proportions, the relationship of the things within the design to each other. Scale is the relationship of the design to the environment it's intended for. So let's jump in and explore a little bit about size in floral design. So at the very beginning of this lesson, we're going to talk about the obvious differences in sizes. Item A, item B, very different in size. This is actually what we need to learn in order to be good communicators to our customers. When we don't want to either exceed or underestimate their expectations for the size of the design, we can start talking about it's about 30 inches high and about 24 inches wide, or about 18 inches high and about 9 inches wide, so that they understand totally what they're buying. Because many times customers are on the phone or on the website and don't really understand the scale of that arrangement or the size of that arrangement. Both these arrangements are completed using the same exact combinations of flowers as far as varieties. We have the snapdragons, the hydrangea, the lilies, the gerbers. Same in this, but just a much smaller version of that. So why would that matter? Well, we need to think about, again, the principle of scale and where these things are going. If we had something going to a hospital room that was a very small room where they had a very small bed table, this arrangement may be more appropriate. But if somebody was sending something to maybe a funeral service at a church where it's vaulted ceilings and very, very open cavernous area, this is something that's just going to totally get lost. Whereas this would be beautiful to send to maybe the receptionist desk at a restaurant, or even to a funeral service where there's going to be a pedestal that this could be placed on and would be much more visible than this would be. Let's also take a look at the appropriateness as far as proportion. You'll see in this design, the arrangement itself is very proportionate to the design, or to, the container that we have here. And on this one, the arrangement is proportionate to this container. If we tried to switch the two, this amount of flowers would be very underwhelming in this vase. And this arrangement would almost be physically impossible, if not impossible, to put into this vase, and would just be very inappropriate and would look very top heavy. So as a floral designer, we need to understand what are the appropriate dimensions of things, what are the appropriate sizes of things that we need to put together in not only the composition as a whole, but for where it's going. And this is, I think, the best example we could show to bring that point home. In our next example, we're going to talk about something very different, because usually when we speak about floral design, there's that old school rule that the design needs to be 1.5 times the height of the container. Well, sometimes that's not a case. And really, I don't think of any of those things as rules that need to be followed, but really they are guidelines that help beginning designers understand kind of the safety zone and where to go with floral designs. But in this one, instead of having the flowers on top of the vase, we're actually going to contain everything inside the vase. And we're going to let the container itself be the volume or the extent or the limits of the volume that we want the entire flower arrangement to be in. So for this, we just put a few river rocks in the bottom and just cut 2 anthuriums, one low and one almost to the very top of this vase. Now you can see the size is very appropriate. It's meant for a small space, so the scale will be great. The things are proportional to each other. They fit inside here very nicely. A teeny tiny flower, like a little bit of baby's breath, is not going to look great in here. A very large flower, like a large heliconia, is going to be way too big. But these 2 anthurium work very perfectly and really fill the space that we've combined very nicely. Now let's take a look at this just with a different viewpoint. If you look at this container now, the container itself has the same footprint. It's the same 4-inch diameter. It's the same clear glass. We have the same things inserted so far. We have the river rock, 1 anthurium, 2 anthurium, and almost in identical placements on both designs. But because this cylinder vase is so much taller than this one, this floral design is just underwhelming for this vase. And they're the things that we can look at as floral designers to think, how do we make adjustments? How do we make this great? How do we make this even perfect when looking at our floral design? So simple fix for something like this, what this needs is just more inside the vase. And it could be more height to the stems, where the stems were longer, and those 2 flowers are maybe coming up here and about here. Or it could be the simple addition of 1 more stem. So if we take 1 more anthurium, and we take this and we're going to maybe roll the flower a little bit so it doesn't crease as we're putting it in there. And we work this in towards the back of that other flower and get that right down into the water as well too. There we go. A simple solution to address what was inappropriate as far as size, meaning the size of the design inside the container for this arrangement. Now this can be a standalone design. It looks gorgeous just like that. We understand ratio, we understand proportion, and we make our design very acceptable for our customers. So what if we take that element of size and try to do something unexpected with it? Again, we talked about those guidelines or rules in floral design where the arrangement is 1.5 times the size. So most designers, if they're given a very large, massive container, are going to want to do a very large, massive arrangement in that to kind of balance out the look and to give itself the right feeling for floral design. So if we imagine a very large cement bowl and we fill that with floral foam and we think about what flowers do we want to put in there, I think my mind at least originally goes to maybe large heliconia and ginger and bird of paradise and maybe large tropical leaves to have this very lush, massive arrangement to compensate for the very weighty, massive bowl or container that we have. But I tried to do something different with this just to challenge all of us in thinking about size and what we can do to maybe use the principle of contrast in our element of size. So here's what I have. It is a very large bowl, and instead of it being such a large arrangement this way, we decided to make something very unexpected. So almost just a hedge of baby's breath, teeny tiny delicate flowers. So we're contrasting that very massive, heavy, weighted bowl with this teeny tiny delicate flowers. A hedge right across the top, maybe no more than 2 inches high, all the way across. And then just a beautiful accent in the center. We took one stem of a very long equisetum and cut it into 3 pieces, and then just gave us a great focal area with the one Cymbidium orchid sunk down right in the center of that at the crossing point of where they all cross in the design. But again, the effectiveness of this, the fact that it's so massive, you expect something big, that contrast where we do something so different and so low and so compact in this bowl makes this a piece of art in and of itself, and something that can be a conversation starter and something that can be a brand even for your shop, that wow, they do different things, they do something unexpected. It wasn't at all what I pictured, but I love it because it is artistic, it's very creative, and it's the floral designer's expression of his art in the materials. So when we talk about the elements of design, we want to learn the basics, we want to get really good at those basics, we want to execute them every day in our everyday work, but we also want to challenge ourselves every now and then and come up with something unexpected, something new, and of course, something creative. Because that's what makes us not just floral arrangers, but floral designers. So I have a challenge for you. Go out, find a container, think about the element of size and how you can challenge yourself with that to create something that people could talk about and refer to you as their favorite floral designer because of it. So let's refer back to our guide again. And we read that while the definition of size may seem quite obvious, it is worthwhile to describe it further. Size is one of the first considerations in creating floral design. And that is true for many customers. So once we grasp the concepts of the principles of proportion and scale and apply them to our element of size in design, when we know that the flowers in the design all have a relationship to each other, whether there's transition from the smallest flower to the largest flower, or whether there's contrast between a large flower and a small flower, or a large container and a small flower. Understanding those principles will help us create really beautiful designs. I love referring back to a book like this after starting to study a design and actually working with it and applying it to my work, because the more you work, the more it makes sense to you when you read things, and maybe even will spark another idea. So again, don't be afraid to get yourself a copy of this book. It is a great tool, and I love having my copy, and I know you will too. Thank you for joining us today on our exploration of the element and size in floral design. Please tune in next time when we explore number 8 of our elements, which is color. That is a fascinating element of design in any medium, but in flowers, it's beautiful, and it is part of the emotion of what we do as floral designers. So tune in next time. My name's Tim Farrell. Thanks so much.